Welcome to FRCMedia News for Thursday, July 29th, 2021. I'm Keith Tebow. 2 police officers are suspended over the handling of drug evidence. The upcoming city election ballot comes into greater focus. Why are there fewer candidates running? And a new family picnic area at Dave's Beach opens this weekend. All that and more coming up. First up this week, however, we have an update on COVID-19 in Fall River. The CDC this week made adjustments to its recommendations on mask wearing, advising those communities with high case counts to advise the wearing of masks indoors regardless of vaccination status. Fall River and Bristol County are at a higher level of new infections compared to the rest of the state. According to Mayor Paul Coogan, the city has seen 14 positive cases new this week compared to 34 cases a week ago. In terms of reinstituting any restrictions, the mayor says he will take a wait-and-see approach.
We would follow the state's guidance on this. They obviously have the resources to monitor it appropriately and to decide the best way to go. I mean, I keep up to date on the news and what is happening. I was reading about the third Pfizer dose today to fight the Delta variant. I keep an eye on treatments. Our hospital numbers are still relatively low compared to where we were when we were getting ready to open field hospitals at UMass Dartmouth. So right now we'll go along with the guidance from the state and see where we end up, with a keen eye on our numbers. We need to get people vaccinated. I think that's the way around this. And then even if you do get it when you're vaccinated, it's an extremely mild case, relatively speaking. So we're gonna keep our eye on the number. We're gonna see what's the best way to proceed. We really want to try to keep going forward to the best of our ability, but at the same time, safety will be the overriding concern. So we'll stay on the numbers.
Here's an update now on the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine in Fall River. 52%, or 46,406 city residents, have received at least one dose of the vaccine, with 42,244, or 47%, fully vaccinated. An update is scheduled later today. You can always get the latest information on our webpage, frmedia.org/COVID vaccine. The easiest way to find out where to get the vaccine in Fall River is through the city's vaccination webpage at frvax.com or by calling 833-8VAX-NOW or 833-882-9669. You can also visit the state's website at vaxfinder.mass.gov. You can also call 211. In many cases, walk-ins are welcome. The Fall River Police Department has sanctioned 2 officers over their mishandling of drug evidence. First reported by WPRI-TV, allegations arose in February that Detective Joshua Robillard of the department's Vice and Intelligence Unit was using confiscated drugs to entice information from local informants. An investigation by the state police and the Bristol County District Attorney's Office did not uncover any wrongdoing. Police spokesman Captain Barton Castro says after the criminal investigation, the department conducted an internal investigation and found drugs stored at Detective Robillard's workspace.
So when the drugs were uncovered in the work area, the chief of police was notified by the Office of Professional Standards. Chief Cardoza met and spoke with Mayor Paul Coogan, and they decided that due to the allegations, the significant amount of drugs being stored improperly, that the best thing to do for full transparency would be to bring in an outside investigator. So former Fall River Police Chief John Souza was hired to conduct the internal investigation. And that consisted of various interviews and looking at the employee's work area. And he came up with a report and a conclusion on what took place. The belief is that it was, complacency. It was sloppiness. It was laziness. It was, at the end of the day, poor police work, poor work in general. But as for any type of more nefarious activity, that was not found in that administrative investigation that took place. In fact, at the conclusion of former Chief Souza's investigation, that investigative report was turned back over to the DA's office so that they could review it and see if there are any, potential issues that they might see. So we kind of had a double check all the way along during this investigation.
Robillard was given a lengthy suspension without pay and will take on a non-investigatory role upon his return. Also suspended was Sergeant Luis Duarte, who was also found to not have followed protocol in securing evidence.
Out of the quantity of evidence that was found in Detective Robillard's work area, there were a few items that had been tagged by, at the time, Detective Duarte as evidence. As part of the investigation, that was explored why this was in the possession of Detective Robillard, and it came to light that Sergeant Duarte, then Detective Duarte, had completed his case. He had turned that evidence over and had assumed that another detective was going to turn it in to the evidence custodian for him. That is a violation of policy. It was his responsibility to turn in his own drug evidence, and that's the issue that we found with that individual.
Since his promotion before the incident, Sergeant Duarte was assigned as a patrol supervisor in the department's uniform division and will return to that role following his suspension. Also, in reporting conducted by WPRI, at least a dozen drug cases investigated by Detective Robillard, currently before the Bristol County District Attorney's Office and in District Court, could be impacted as a result of this incident. The case has also called into question the integrity of the Fall River Police Department. Captain Castro says he's embarrassed by the situation, and no one within the department is happy with what took place.
But I think that if you have to look at the situation and you look at it from the bigger picture, you can see that, we've been transparent. We haven't tried to hide anything. We've brought in an outside person to conduct this investigation. We've given the DA's office 2 opportunities to review what took place here. We brought in the state police initially to look at it. And I would ask the community to still have faith in us. Obviously, people are going to have their concerns, and I don't blame them. But I think at the end of the day, if you really look at what took place here, you'll understand that it was just a situation where, there was 1 or 2 individuals who were complacent. They were a little bit lazy in their work practices, and, their handling of evidence got away from them.
The ballot for this year's city election is looking a bit clearer. Candidates returned their nomination papers by last Friday, and signatures are being certified. Here's a list of those who have returned completed nomination papers. There are 4 potential candidates running for mayor, including incumbent Mayor Paul Coogan, challengers Jonathan Albernaz, City Council President Cliff Ponte, and Michael Vandal. For school committee, there are 10 candidates potentially on the ballot for 6 spots. They include incumbents Kevin Aguiar, Paul Hart, and Mimi Larrabee, and challengers Bobby Bailey, Charles Chase, Colin Dias, Melissa Doyle, John Koleski, Shelley Pereira, and Sarah Rodrigues. Incumbents Mark Costa, Thomas Corey, and Joshua Hetzler have chosen not to seek re-election. For city councilor, 8 candidates potentially will be on the ballot. 8 incumbents are running for re-election, including Sean Kadim, Michelle Dion, Brad Kilby, Pam LaLibby-LeBeau, Trot Lee, Christopher Peckham, Leo Pelletier, and Linda Pereira. Challengers include Gabriel Amaral, Paulo Amaral, former councilor Joseph Camara, Angel Patoya, Andrew Raposo, Alexander Silva, Matthew Springer, Ricky Tith, Chris Ann Terrell, and Laura Jean Washington. Based on that list, there's a likelihood of a preliminary election for mayor, but not for city council or school committee. It's the 3rd consecutive election where that's been the case. So why are residents not showing interest in running for office? Former Fall River Mayor John Mitchell believes one reason is the increased commitment needed to run for office.
Some of it could be as simple as just busier lives. People work more. Two families, 2-person families, both husband and wife's working. Certainly less leisure time. I think that contributes to it. I think there's just more involved with it now. Certainly for city council, and I think also for school committee, you've got to form a campaign committee. You're going to have to raise some money, and that's involved. It takes some time. It takes some effort. There's ethics questions, particularly if you're in business or work some type of job. If you're a government employee, there's a lot of restrictions on your ability to run for office. So I think that also contributes. It's not like it was, say, in the 60s when you'd have 50, 60 candidates for Fall River City Council. And the reason you had so many, it was easy. You put in your nomination papers and you were ready to go.
The former mayor says the need to secure more certified signatures to be placed on the ballot with the change in the city's charter should not be a barrier to run. He says another reason for a lack of candidates is the increased scrutiny they face, particularly through social media.
There's now unfiltered criticism of candidates. I talked to some people who are in offices that draw a lot of attention. People follow them around. People film them, out of town. People film them when they go out to eat or if they might be in a bar or something like that. And then that's aside from the unfounded criticism, allegations made, the unsubstantiated just attacks that are made on social media. It could be a little bit too, I don't think government's looked at as fondly as it was years ago. Certainly not when I was younger, and certainly not as it was 30 years ago. I think there's more of a sense of why bother with that? Is it valuable? Is it a good use of my time? Is it appreciated? It seems kind of thankless. So
the race for mayor will likely pit Mayor Paul Coogan against City Council President Cliff Ponte. Former Mayor Mitchell says each man brings a unique skill set to the campaign.
Cliff's, he's aspiring. He's a hardworking. Just had someone in my office, and he's got a very good reputation as a businessman, realtor, the restaurants he's opened. And then again, on the other hand, I do think Mayor Coogan is certainly, I think he's been the right person for the time after what went on with the most recent career administration. I think having someone older, more subdued, someone who keeps an even keel, I think it meant a lot to the city. And then on top of it with the pandemic, I think it was a style of leadership even more called for. And now, of course, perhaps, although in the last few days, I don't know if things will return to normal, but if they do, Mayor Coogan will have an opportunity over the next few months to show how he'll act, being out in public more, getting around more. And, he certainly convinced the public when he ran 2 years ago.
The preliminary election will be held on September 21st, with the city election set for November 2nd. The state legislature and Governor Charlie Baker earlier this month approved an FY 2022 state budget, and Fall River stands to see increases in state aid. State Senator Michael Rodrigues, chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, which helps draft the state budget, says his role as chair allows for his district to reap the benefit.
I say to folks, I'm only going to be chair of Ways and Means Committee for a finite amount of time. You don't have this position forever. It's as long as the Senate president chooses to appoint me to this position. And I'm the first Senate chair of Ways and Means ever from the city of Fall River. There's never been a Ways and Means chair from Fall River. So I'm going to take advantage of this as much as I can to be reasonable, not to be greedy, but to ensure that those areas of state support that Fall River, in my opinion, have been falling behind other areas of the state, we catch up with.
For FY 2022, one of the areas gaining added financial support is local education.
We increased that line item by about $240 million over FY 21, which was about $130 million over FY 20. So we're seeing a very significant and steady increase in investment in K through 12 education. Fall River, because of its demographics, because of the fact that it has one of the poorest social economic demographics in the state, receives a much higher percentage, probably the highest, if not definitely one of the top 3 highest reimbursements percentage of any community in the Commonwealth. I want to say upwards of about $135 million are flowing into Fall River's K through 12 school system, which pays fully for close to 90%. 90% of Fall River schools will be paid for by state dollars.
Fall River's police department will also be the beneficiary of additional state support.
In the police department, it was all about boots on the ground, getting as many boots on the ground, getting their neighborhood patrols, their community policing patrols back up and running again. So we, once again, successfully included multiple millions of dollars in the state budget, of which Fall River will receive upwards of about $1 million again this year for the, I think, 10th year in a row for public safety staffing. Again, Fall River is one of a handful of communities that receives any money for this purpose and receives by far the greatest amount of money in public safety staffing.
Bristol Community College, the Battleship Massachusetts, and the Children's Museum of Greater Fall River will also be beneficiaries of increased state aid. Senator Roderick says the legislature will soon be taking up overriding budget vetoes imposed by Governor Baker, and after that, the focus will shift on how the legislature will spend over $5 billion in federal funds from the American Rescue Plan Act.
These ARPA funds are all about recovery. They're not about responding to the pandemic. They're about recovery from the pandemic. And we want to ensure a very fair and equitable recovery so that every citizen of the Commonwealth, regardless of where they live, regardless of their social economic condition, will see an equal and equitable recovery. Nobody is better positioned to do that than we in the legislature. We wanted to make sure that that process is open, that process is transparent, that process is inclusive of everyone, so that we can hear voices and opinions from every stakeholder around the Commonwealth that wants to offer their opinion on how we should spend the money.
The Fall River City Council's Ordinance Committee continued the conversation this week as to whether it has jurisdiction over the expenditure of $69 million in city funding for the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. Last week, the council was told that when it accepted the first payment of ARPA funds of over $34 million, the mayor has sole authorization on how the money would be spent. At this week's meeting, Corporation Counsel Alan Rumsey said state law made it clear that the ARPA funding was to be treated as any other grant.
What it essentially says is that the mayor and the city council both must accept the grant funds. And once it is accepted by those two bodies, the executive and legislative branch here, then that the person who receives the grant can go ahead and expend it without further a city council appropriation. And it does make sense. What it's saying is that, sometimes you might have grant money for a purpose that the city doesn't want. So you would reject it in that case. So the city council and the mayor both must accept the money for the purposes. But once that's done, it's an executive branch's decision in this case for expenditure of the grant money.
City Council Attorney Laura Goldberg of KP Law says the state statute is not as cut and dry as Attorney Rumsey claims.
In a lot of cases, when you get grants from the state or from a particular person with respect to building a playground or fixing a field or renovating a building, anything like that, it's true that council has no role in deciding those questions about what kind of grout should we use and, will this be a 3-month event or will it take 5 months or should it start sooner? But the council can say, yes, we approve the expenditure of those funds for that project. In this case, there are wide categories of quote unquote allowable expenditures. It is not the same as when you get a gift from a private individual or a grant, etc., for one purpose.
The committee is moving ahead with plans to draft a policy that will make recommendations on how the ARPA money should be spent. Mayor Paul Coogan has assembled an advisory committee that will also make recommendations on how to best spend the funds. City Councilor Christopher Peckham is a member of that advisory panel. Bristol Community College last week announced that it will have a new location for its Taunton Center. The new home will be in the former Coyle and Cassidy High School on Hamilton Street. The center will be comprised of 7 general classrooms, 2 computer labs, a full auditorium and gymnasium, and a high-tech biology and chemistry lab. The center will be open when classes resume this fall. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Middle school technology teacher, Argosy Collegiate Charter School, located at 263 Hamlet Street, is in need of a full-time middle school technology teacher, responsible for enacting school-wide systems and routines to ensure scholars have a well-organized, structured, and productive learning environment. Job number 152-30692. Dental assistant, Health First, located at 387 Quarry Street, is looking for a full-time dental assistant, responsible for assisting and performing a wide variety of patient oral health care services. Job number 152-10209. Web Front-End Developer, Innovative Defense Technologies, located at 99 South Main Street, is looking for a full-time web front-end developer, responsible for taking the designs created by web designers and use a mix of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to code those website designs. Job number 152-10048. Star, located at 400 Stanley Street, has an immediate need for the following full and part-time positions. Bilingual medical case manager, job number 152-25755. Clinician, job number 152-25918. St. Anne's Hospital, located at 795 Middle Street, also has an immediate need for the following full and part-time positions. Material handler, job number 152-02868. ER technician, job number 152-02838. For more information on these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. The attorneys for former Fall River Mayor Jazier Correa has filed its first brief to appeal a portion of the convictions of the former mayor for defrauding investors in his Snow Owl app company and extortion and conspiracy against prospective recreational marijuana vendors. Attorneys Daniel Marks and William Fick are asking U.S. District Court Judge Douglas Woodlock to grant a new trial or acquit Correa of the fraud and tax evasion charges in the Snow Owl case. It's unclear when Judge Woodlock would rule on that request. Meanwhile, Correa is still scheduled to be sentenced on his convictions on September 20th. There are many of us who are old enough to remember spending time at Dave's Beach on the South Wautuppa Pond. The area has been abandoned for some time, but now a coalition of city officials, veterans groups, and private donors have turned a portion of the site into a family picnic area. City Councilor Linda Pereira took the lead on the project.
Several months ago, I requested a meeting with the mayor, with Bill Kenny from Planning, with John Perry from the head of DCM, with Mike Dion from Community Development, and, the mayor, every player that needed to be there to talk about the water department, to talk about what we could do here. And I got the blessing from the mayor that, yep, it's doable. And he has a vision too, as I do, of giving people access to water. We're surrounded by water, and our residents don't have any facilities that can bring them to see the water. So the vision was created.
The area comprises of over a dozen picnic tables and space for other recreational activities.
Other areas in the city that do things with youth, let's have the youth down here. Let's get some music. There are no houses around here. So if there's music here till 10 o'clock at night, you're giving youth place to go, and they meet other youth. And, you know, if somebody wants to come by with a food truck, that's great. They can do that. A lot of the senior centers, if they want to come down, they can come down and utilize it. The schools, when they open up, the schools can come down in September, the end of the year. They're looking for things to do. You could come down and have games here.
The public is invited to attend a special opening of the picnic area this Saturday, July 31st at noon.
We're going to have some sort of music here. Somebody that owns a boat said, oh, I'll give people boat rides around the pond. That's great. We're going to have some horseshoes and we're going to have some cornhole. I'm going to connect with the row center next door because they do a lot of rowing, teaching children how to row, and adults and veterans, and it's for free. So we can compliment them and they can compliment us, and maybe they'll have somebody Saturday, you know, showing what programs they have there to offer.
We'll wrap up this edition of FRC Media News right after this.
Today with us we have Mojo. He is a golden retriever mix. He is roughly about 6 years old. He is treat motivated. When he first meets you, he is a little shy, but he is getting there. Once he learns he can trust you, he'll be a little shadow. He is a very gentle dog. He is afraid of cats. So if you do have a cat, he won't be the kind of dog to sit there and get in their face. Once they growl at him, he'll move away. He does know a couple of basic commands. Can you sit? Good sit. Paw. Good paw. Other paw. Good paw. So come down and meet Mojo. We are at Forever Paws Animal Shelter in Fall River, Massachusetts. I know Mojo would love to meet you and go for a nice long walk with you.
Today we have Hadley. Hadley is a 2-year-old black and white kitty. She's got some medium hair on there, though her face, you can tell, looks very, very short hair. She is a very, very sweet cat, loves attention from people. She's just being a lazy bones right now. She is okay with other cats. We've got her here in a communal room with their big cat tree. She would do well, I would think, in most houses. Any like overly energetic dogs or overly energetic kids might not be the best fit for her, only because she'll get freaked out by their, let's face it, their spastic movements. But pretty much any other case, she would do really great in that home. And like I said, she's really sweet and very pretty. So if you'd like to meet Hadley, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts.
That's all for this edition of FRC Media News. Please check out our website at frmedia.org for all the latest news and information. This program, FRC Media News, airs Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next Thursday.